I hope all are here. The second session for the day is chaired by Professor Bijoy Panda sir, Assistant Professor, Department of Clinical Pharmacy, Pune College of Pharmacy, Bharati Vidyapeeth University. I request sir to take over the platform.
Yes, thank you. Can I just have the slides, please? Good morning to one and all. Yes, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sunil C. Munkar, a professor of pediatrics, KMC Manipal, and I'll just give a brief out his credentials. Next slide, please. Thank you. Professor Sunil sir is a professor in pediatrics at KMC Manipal, and he has a rich experience of 20 years. If you look, he's a NABH principal assessor and a lead auditor for ISO 9001 and 14001, and that's actually shows that he is involved in implementing quality and implementation at KMC Hospital. So he's currently advisor in that. Uh, he's a trainer of trainers and assessor for NABH. Has many publications in international and national journals, as well as he has presented many papers in various international journals of pediatrics in quality. Area of expertise, if you look, it is predominantly in the area of infectious disease and intensive care and pediatric cardiology. And he is affiliated to various institutions like Indian Academy of Pediatrics, Indian Academy of Pediatric Cardiology Chapter 2005, and Pediatric Infectious Disease Chapter 2007. I welcome him for this QIP program. Uh, yes, sir, please. I welcome you, sir. Good morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
Yes, can you share the slide for sir, please?
Yes. Are my slides are visible?
Yes,
No,
sir.
sir.
Sir, the screen sharing is starting. Now it is visible, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. It's visible, no?
It's visible, sir. Probably you need to come down to the second slide. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's quite visible. Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. Good morning to all of you. Hope you had a very, very interactive first session on this day, the first day of this week. And thank you, Mr. Bijoy, for giving that introduction of me. And
It's my pleasure, sir.
thank you, Madam Manjusha, for uh, allowing me to share a few of my experiences as far as medication safety in pediatric practice is concerned. I'm a pediatrician basically for the last 20 years, 22 years. And I'm into this quality journey for the last 15 years or so. And I have even conducted medication safety workshops for NABH, both in India and in Philippines. So my topic of discussion today will be on medication safety in pediatric practice. This is how the overview of pediatric medication and safety will be there. I'll be talking on importance of pediatric pharmacotherapy, pediatric versus adult pharmacotherapy, how it's different, problems with pediatric pharmacotherapy, general considerations and special considerations, and how to prevent or how to make pediatric pharmacotherapy safe. Please make your all. Please note, write down all your questions. We'll definitely will try to address this at the end of the session. There's a famous saying: "Go to a doctor with your illness because doctor has to survive because you pay him. Go to the pharmacist with the prescriptions and buy the medicines because pharmacist has to survive. You pay him, but do not take medicines because you have to survive." It is a very, very famous saying, although it may not be true or it is not true always, but this is this question of safety of medicines. And that too in pediatrics, you should be very, very careful because 40% of any clinical practice is mainly by the pediatric age group, childhood. It's the most abused population because they are dependent on the parents. They are because they are They cannot express themselves. So it is very, very difficult to understand the pediatric population. It's mainly confidently treated by many practitioners, clinicians, quacks, pharmacists, traditional doctors, and parents, confidently having no knowledge as to what and how to prescribe drugs. That is the pathetic story. It's confidently treated by many of these professionals, confidently having no knowledge as to what and how to prescribe drugs. That is the tragedy. Please note that children are not half adults. Many of the other doctors and clinicians think that children are half adults. Not like that. It's not like give ampicillin half tablet, CPM half tablet, paracetamol syrup, tablet half tablet, and some cough syrup half spoonful, and think that children are half adults and you can manage it half of the dosage of what is prescribed for adults. Please note that in pediatrics, over-treating is as dangerous as under-treating. Over-treating is as dangerous as under-treating. If you do not give the exact dosage in children, it will be either toxic or useless. Please note the words. If you do not know the exact dosage, it will be toxic in children or it may be useless in children. Equally important to know the contraindications than indications. There are some indications which are in adults or contraindications in children or the vice versa. Not all medical conditions require drugs. That is very, very important. Again, I have seen some pediatricians, some doctors treating every symptom of a child with a drug. Cough, there is one drug. Cold, there is one drug. Nasal block, there is one drug. Fever, there is one drug. Loss of appetite, there is one drug. Pained abdomen, there is one drug. Vomiting, one drug. So the length of prescription is directly proportional to the symptoms of the patient. That is not correct. Right drug, right dose, right duration is a must. And it's not only in India. If you see the worldwide, how is it? This is a comparative statement of many of the hospitals across India, Ireland, UK, New Zealand, etc. And if you see the third column, there are up to 66%, 11% to 66% prescriptions of unlicensed drugs, and up to 90% of them off-label drugs. You'll be very, very surprised to see this, but this is a published data. I'm not taking it from my pocket. And why people go irrational? Why people go irrational? Whatever, if you're not giving a medicine if you're giving a medicine without an indication, that means it is irrational. There is no time to talk to parents. These are some of the reasons which has come from the clinicians. No patience to treat patients. There is no patience. If the second question is that the doctor gets irritated. No knowledge of drug preparations. They don't know how is the preparation. Earlier there was one drug which is conveniently taken care of. Withdrawn now, that is naledixic acid. If you don't give 55 milligram per kg, if you exceed it by 5 milligrams, the patient will have to do too much therapy. Over expectant parents, they force you tomorrow and day after there is an exam, please start antibiotic. Without indication, clinician is forced to start antibiotic. Pressure from some pharmaceutical companies. You prescribe these drugs, I'll give the cuts, I will give 2 bottles free, I will give 10 bottles. If you sell 10 bottles, I'll give 2 bottles free kind of pressure. When you do not know anything, prescribe something. Some of the clinicians said, when you don't know anything, prescribe something and tell them to go to a higher center if it's not better by 2 days. What determines the effectiveness of the therapy in children? It may be for problems, or it may be in relation to pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, on pharmaceutics or pharmacotherapeutics. Let's try to sort these problems. Please see that when the oral drug absorption is given, how different is in adults versus how different in its child. Gastric acid secretion may be reduced in neonate. Neonate is when I say it's less than 1 month of age, infant is less than 1 year, and child is beyond 1 year. Gastric acid secretion is reduced. Gastric emptying time is reduced in neonate, whereas it is increased in older children. Intestinal motility may be reduced in the newborn. Biliary functions may be reduced in newborn. Microbial flora would not have already developed. It's slowly acquiring once the child is born. Whereas in infant, it is adult type of microbial flora. And please Note that all these factors, gastric acid secretion, emptying time, intestinal mobility, biliary functions, and microbial flora, all alter or determine the bioavailability and efficacy of the drugs. Second one is the physiology, how different it is. The fluid compartment, composition, and the volume changes, they are different for different age groups. The intravascular, extravascular, and extracellular volumes change as the child grows. Drug binding proteins, availability, receptors, affinity, etc. will change. The maturity, for example, if you give phenobarbital, that will improve the maturity of bilirubin conjugation in the liver in the newborn period. But after the newborn period, it is not required because the brain will mature. In the initial phase, blood-brain barrier is immature in the first 5 days. So if you give some drugs which may displace the bilirubin from the albumin binding site, it may cause bilirubin-induced neurological damage. These bilirubins can cross the blood-brain barrier, the free bilirubins, and can cause damage. Total protein and serum albumin concentrations are reduced in infancy, maybe because of malnutrition, because of many other reasons that will again alter the drug transportation and drug delivery. Cardiac output, regional blood flow, and permeability varies with the age for different age groups, different mechanisms. So we should be aware when you treat these children with a different kind of drugs. As I already told you, quantity of liver oxidizing and hydrolytic enzyme is equal to adults, but the activity is reduced. The quantity is same, but the quality is different of these enzymes. So they may not be functioning optimally at that time in the newborn period or the infancy. So the metabolism of, for example, diazepam or phenytoin may change in children versus adults. Also, there's a vice versa. Some digoxin is very well tolerated in children when compared to adults. Please remember the fatal gray baby syndrome we had when we were using chloramphenicol in the dose of 100 milligram per kg, which had come down to 15 to 50 milligrams subsequently. The kidney functions also mature over a period of time. It is not the same as in newborns as well as adults. The GFR is around 2 to 4 ml per minute in full-term neonates, whereas it's 8 to 8 ml in minutes by 2 to 3 days, and reaches adult values by 3 to 5 months of age. So in the first 5 months, you should be very, very clear, very, very careful when you treat these children which are having renal excretion of medicine. Renal blood flow of 12 ml per minute at birth and reaches adult values of 5 to 12 months of age. Creatinine also varies with the age. Creatinine, a little higher value we consider as normal. Between 6 months to 1 year, it comes to around say 0.3 to 0.4, but even adults it's 0.8 to 1.2 we consider it as normal. Whereas a 0.8 at 1 year may be abnormal. So you should know the normal creatinine clearance to understand the renal functions also when you treat nephrogenic and excreting drugs. Issues with the pharmacodynamics. Pharmacodynamics is what drug does to the body. Example, responsiveness issues to digoxin is less in children, as I've already told you. So digoxin is very well tolerated in adults. In digoxin, you can give 6 or 7 days a week in children. Whereas in adults, you will say 5 to 7 days a month. Keep on Saturdays and Fridays like that. Neonates have increased sensitivity to glucuronide, so they may go for muscle paralysis. Children, when they are treated with streptomycin, had much more muscle relaxation when compared to adults. Pharmacogenomics, now you know how the genes determine the pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics of drugs. Many drugs which are safe in adults are dangerous in children and vice versa. The classical example is the penicillin. Penicillin is very safe. We never used to give procaine penicillin test dose in small children. Whereas beyond 4 years or 5 years, we always used to give after the test dose. And allergic reactions are much more common in adults. Tetracycline, if you give less than 7 years, they will have permanent staining of teeth. Whereas in adults, it is very safe. Adrenaline and ischemic heart disease. In children, adrenaline we can use right, left, and center. Whereas in adults, if you give adrenaline very unnecessarily, it may cause or it may precipitate an ischemic heart disease and heart attack. Issues with the pharmaceutics or pharmacotherapy. Dependency. Majority of the problems is because of the dependency these children have. There are problems with the caretakers. Point number 1, these symptoms will be altered by the parents. Patient may be crying out of meningitis or an antibiotic. They may consider it as pain abdomen and complain to the doctors that the child is suffering from pain abdomen, and we may have to differ or we may have to make the treatment accordingly. So that is a challenge. So it is a dependency that is causing problem. The medicines, the duration, the frequency, the dosage, everything, these children depend on the parents. So many cooks spoil the broth. Too many people involved in the management, definitely there are sources of errors. The dose is a major determinant of response. It depends on the weight and body surface area. Please note that children are not half adults. Again, tell you. So the weight or the dose depends on the body weight and the surface area. Some of the medications we give depend on the body weight. Some of them we give it on the body surface area. As I've already told you, if you do not give the exact dose, it will be toxic or useless. Should know the preparation strength. Example, amoxicillin reduced syrup drops for dry syrup. So, for example, amoxicillin reduced syrup, it comes as 125 milligram per kg per 5 ml and 250 milligram in the double strength per 5 ml. Whereas drops comes with 100 mg per ml. And there are dry syrups versus reduced syrups. And there are some medications which come as, for example, paracetamol. It comes as 100 mg per kg, 100 mg per ml drops, 150 mg per ml drops, 125 mg per 5 ml syrup, 250 mg per 5 ml syrup, 240 mg per 5 ml syrup, 500 mg per 5 ml syrup. So you should know what you are prescribing, what is the concentration of drug in that syrup, and then treat. And also should know the duration of treatment. Because, for example, if I give amoxicillin drops 1 ml 3 times daily, it comes as 10 ml preparation. So if you give 1 ml 3 times daily, it will be over by 3.5 days. If I don't prescribe 2 bottles, the patient is likely to stop the medicines after 3.5 days, and the duration of the treatment is not covered. So whenever I give amoxicillin drops, I see to it that they buy 2 bottles and continue for 7 days. Similarly, majority of the syrups are 30 ml bottles preparations. So it will come for 3 or 4 days when you treat. And if you want to give the medicine for 7 days, you should know how many bottles you need to prescribe. Route. There are many routes in children: oral, sublingual, rectal, IV, intramuscular, subcutaneous, inhaled, topical, transdermal, otic, intradermal, intraosseous, and intranasal. Depending on the bioavailability, we use these drugs, but please note that majority of drugs are prescribed orally. Some of them cannot be taken orally because of the various reasons, either gastric or because of the digestion. So we may have to give parenterally. Otherwise, majority of the drugs are given orally. The problems with nasal and oral otic drops, I'll tell you later. And the problems with the topical, very unique to children in the sense, for example, if you apply one ointment onto the hand, the children likely to mouth. So they take these, they ingest these ointments and liniments, and they may go into the stomach and they may cause problems. So that's a very, very unique things to pediatrics. In adult, you can say that don't eat or swallow these ointments or liniments, whereas in pediatric, by reflex, they put the hands into the mouth, and that may cause problems. Then preparations, challenges to the preparations. In adults, we can always give tablets or capsules, whereas in pediatrics, some of them come as suspension, some of them as syrups. I'll give a classical example, phenytoin. Phenytoin is a suspension, diphenyl hydroton is a suspension, and if you do not tell specifically these patients or patients bystanders or parents to shake the bottle very well before use, the first few days you will not get the seizure control because only the supernatant is given. So they will get a lower dose of phenytoin, but the next half of the bottle will have higher concentration of phenytoin, so they will get the toxicity. So that's what I said. If you don't give the exact dosage, it will be toxic or useless. The first few days they will have seizures. The next few days they will be toxic. They will show all signs of toxicity. So you should be very, very careful in such situations when you are using suspensions to advise the patients to give, to shake well before use, and see to it that it is a uniform suspension when they take the exact dose. Taste, again, a unique feature in adults, even if it is bitter taste, adults do take, whereas in pediatrics, if we do not have a sweet taste, children will run away from the syrup. The classical example is the bromhexin. Is a very, very, very good medication, but has a very, very bitter taste. Chloroquine, invariably children vomit. So we give antiemetics prior to some administration of chloroquine, which is given for malaria. So bromhexin, whatever the things, whatever the sweetening agents you add, it has its own bitter taste, And it is a very bad aftertaste also. Those who have tasted bromoxin will understand it better. Of course, capsules and tablets. In children, you cannot give capsules unless they are, say, 5 to 7 years of age, where they can swallow these centrifugal-coated tablets. Dispersible and melt tablets are useful. One of the medicines that's given for vomiting is domperidone, and it comes as even disposable tablets and melt tablets, mouth dissolving MD, mouth dissolving tablets. But the taste of it is so bad that the children will continue to vomit, even the tablet they will vomit. So you should be very, very careful in children about the taste also when you are prescribed. And all the childhood related problems like refusal, vomiting, spitting of medicines. You give 5 ml, 2 ml, it spit out. So you don't know whether to repeat or whether to give 3 ml or whether to repeat the whole dose. Vomiting even immediately after the medicine, whether you should repeat. Is it toxic? Is it fair? Is it fear? Is it good enough to repeat the dose? Confusion. Scare, volume administration. One of the children, I said, Delcon, some cough syrup you have to give. And I told them that if you give 5 ml 3 times daily, the bottle will be over by 4 days. And this intelligent boy was my patient, was closely listening to it, the discussion. And he went home and he was refusing to drink the tablet, the syrup. Then the mother scared him that, see, the doctor has told you, please, you have to empty this bottle. He went inside, took the bottle, and completely emptied the bottle at once. That is another childhood problem. It's a professional hazard for pediatricians. Water. Non-compliance. It may be because of wrong prescriptions where we have given amoxicillin for one bottle and patient stops after 3 days. Omission of doses sometimes, errors of dosage, sometimes omission of dosage in the sense I forgot in the night report, night dose, morning again I forgot afternoon, so the dose, the course stopped. Errors of dosage, if you do not calculate per kg body weight or per meter square, then it may be useless or harmful. Errors in time of administration, as I've already told you. Premature discontinuation, you have told them to give for 5 days or 7 days, and they say, we have given only for 3 days. Refusal to take, spitting, drooling, etc. may cause much more problem. Non-compliance, other reasons are multiple drug therapy. There is one drug which comes at 8 o'clock in the morning, one drug in the afternoon, one drug in the night. And there are 3 drugs which need to be taken after food, one drug to be taken before food, one with empty stomach, and there was one insulin. Again, many things going together, the patient will be totally confused. Frequency of administration, some of the drugs have to be given TID, some of the drugs BD, some of the 6 early, some of the drugs one before food, one after food. Some of them have to be taken at bedtime. So much of confusions. Again, there's non-compliance. Adverse effects, they don't know what is the reason for the adverse effects and they stop all medication. Decrease in symptoms, yes, prednisolone given for 6 weeks in nephrotic syndrome. Patient will be asymptomatic after say 3 to 5 days. But unless you stress them the importance of continuation of 6 weeks of treatment, patient will stop the medicines after 1 week because patient became all right, so they stop. And there are chances of recurrences. Cost is another drug. Another factor here which makes them stop the medicines. If you give costly medicines, some of them may stop after 2 to 3 months of treatment, where a long-term drug medication therapy is required. Administration of medication, sometimes cumbersome, parenteral medicines you give and enema, so that's, for example. It may be cumbersome for them to give the medicines and they may stop at any point. Again, prescription and labeling. Legibility is a big, big question for the doctors. Lookalike sound-alike drugs like Oberon and Losartan, etc. Dose, preparations, quantity, frequency, duration, food interactions, direction, storage of requirements, all these things need to be clearly told. I'll tell you, the greatest challenge for us is when we give amoxiclav. Amoxicillin is given with the clavulanic acid in the dose of 20 to 40 milligrams. When we give plain amoxicillin, we give in the dose of 20 to 40 milligrams. Now, plain amoxicillin, we give in the dose of 40 to 50 milligrams. Whereas when it comes to co-amoxiclav, with clavulanic acid, we give a little dose of 15 to 20 milligrams per kg body weight. So, but clavulanic acid is very, very highly heat labile. So if you do not keep the prepared medicine in the refrigerator, clavulanic acid will be useless. And if the clavulanic acid doesn't exert its function, ultimately we are giving a lower dose of amoxicillin, which is going to be useless. So whenever you are giving co-amoxiclav, it is inevitable. You have to do the advice on keep the prepared medicine in the refrigerator. Otherwise, it will be impotent or useless. Multi-drug prescriptions, many drugs, many combinations, then you may be in for trouble. Then inert ingredients. There's also again a problem in children. For example, benzoate, which is used for as a preservative in many of the drugs, may displace the bilirubin from the albumin binding site and may cause bilirubin-induced neurological damage. The classic example. The coloring agents, detergents, preservatives, and bases, which may be some of them have food allergy to these coloring agents and detergents. So should be very, very careful in prescribing these medicines when they are on these medications. So please note that not being aware is not an excuse. You should be very, very careful when you use these medicines. So some of the general considerations which are not specific to pediatrics: use drugs only when indicated. Very, very important. Use drugs only when it is indicated. Check the weight and calculate the dose. Always give the exact dose. If it is not given, it is either useless or toxic. Use the drugs in the exact dosage recommended for the disease. Example of chloramphenicol ceftriaxone. Chloramphenicol, when it is given for pneumonia, it is given as 50 milligram per kg. When it is for typhoid, it is 75 milligram per kg. When it is for meningitis, it is given at 100 milligram per kg. Similarly, ceftriaxone is given for pneumonia 50 to 100 milligram per kg. But if it is a immunocompromised state, we give up to 100 to 150 milligram per kg. So the dose also depends on the diagnosis. Use the preferred formulation for the age. For example, typhoid drugs. Earlier, typhoid oral was available, but it's an entry-coated tablet, and you have to, because it's a live bacteria, and if you chew it and take it, this bacteria will be destroyed by the gastric acid. So it's a very, very highly entry-coated capsule. It needs to be swallowed, and children who don't know how to swallow tablets cannot take these drugs. So use the preferred formulation for the age, different age group. We give smaller children, neonates and infants usually drops. The concentration, it is a concentrated suspension or syrup. So you should be very, very careful. 1 ml of amoxicillin drops contains 100 milligrams of amoxicillin, whereas 1 ml of syrup contains only 50 milligrams or 25 milligrams of amoxicillin. Use the preferred route, whether it's oral, nasal, or rectal, or whatever the route that's recommended. Always have the disease process and its effects in drug metabolism in mind. Remember that the creatinine clearance and the hepatitis, which may be there in these children, which may alter the drug metabolism, and you may have to do a interval correction or dose correction in such patients. Give proper advice to the parents how to take, what to take, and what not to take. There are medicines that are not to be taken with the milk, because most of the children, the parents give the medicines with the milk. Avoid multiple drugs as far as possible. The more the drug, the more the problems, more the errors, and the more the problems and toxicity. So be careful about the drug interactions when you are giving multiple drugs. Try to have simple dosing schedule so that it's convenient based on the milligram per kg. But I have seen some residents writing 0.35 ml of drops. Nothing will happen. There is a range of 20 to 40 milligram per kg, or say 15, 20 milligram per kg. Give the higher or the lower, adjust the dosage in within the range. So then you can give up to 0.5 ml or 1 ml, so that make these mothers' job very easy or can be comfortable. Don't write just 0.35 ml or 0.8 ml, 0.65 ml, etc. Make it 0.5 ml or 1 ml, so that it will be easy for them to measure and keep. Keep in mind that food drug and drug interactions, especially when you are using multiple drugs, one drug may interfere with the metabolism of another drug, so better be careful in food drug interactions. Some of the drug has to be given before food, on stomach, or during food, with the food, or after. Double check the dosages of high risk drugs which can cause toxicity, which have a narrow therapeutic index. Always ask somebody else to verify whether your dosage has been written correctly or not. The classical example we give is for digoxin or for aminophylline. Be aware of contraindications. Should be very, very clear where you should not use this medication. Always refer books or consult if you are doubt. There is nothing wrong. There is nothing inferiority complex in this. Please refer before you finalize the treatment plan. And keep serum creatinine and GFR in mind, because a lot of drugs are excreted through kidney, and if the GFR is reduced or serum creatinine is increased, then you may have to modify the dose or the interval of these medications. Do wash your child's hand immediately if medicine gets on them, because they may put it in the mouth. Do use distractions such as toys, songs, stories, and rhymes to keep your child busy when trying to give medicines. I am sure all of you might have gone through the beautiful video of a doctor giving a vaccine to a child by using distractions. Do get another adult to help to hold the infant while you give the medicines, because they may spill, they may throw, they may uh, struggle. So you need to be very, very careful. Do try a different form of medicines. Child might prefer a chewable tablet or a form that can be sprinkled on the food, or sometimes you may have to change the medicine to drops, or drops to syrups, tablets to syrups, syrups to tablets. You may have to do with try with a different brand so that the taste is different. Do teach your child about the illness and what she has to take and why she has to take the medicines. When you involve the child, also an older child, in the treatment, they will understand it better and they will accept it better. Do help the child gain some control by letting him or her make age appropriate decisions about care. Do use prescriptions as directed, even if your child is feeling better. The duration, the frequency, the dosages, and the bottles, follow the prescriptions very carefully. Do store medicines out of the reach of children and pets. Very, very important thing. There are no antidotes available for some of these toxic drugs and medicines. So better be careful. See to it that they don't reach. These children don't reach. They have exploring ability, exploring inquisitiveness, and mouthing when they combine, say around 1 year of age, they are prone for these domestic accidents. Do not use a teaspoon or tablespoon from your silverware, or to measure the medicine for your child. Is always the cups which are available with the preparation, so that you will give the exact dosage. This is one of the prescriptions which I am still not able to understand. It's one of the famous doctor's prescriptions, and I'm still finding out what is written in that. This is what has happened to our prescriptions. I never knew that there is a separate medical alphabet for doctors. And this is what has happened to our handwriting over a period of time as being doctors when we prescribe the medicine. And I'm sure many of you will do agree with me. My prescriptions have definitely gone wrong. Try to kindly be aware of error-prone abbreviations. I think already one session is there on error-prone abbreviations. I will not go into the depth of it. So when you write milligrams versus micrograms, international versus IV, very clearly you should write whether it's subcutaneous or lingually. Tegretol 100 milligrams versus Tegretol 1100 milligrams. So the pharmacist may give 500 mg 3 times daily or 2 times daily. When you write 1 milligrams versus 10 milligrams, the decimal point may be missing there, or 0.1 milligrams may be considered as 1 milligram, and they may give you a higher dosage. So let's try to understand some of the methods to prevent prescription errors. Always try to write it in capital letters, legibly and clearly. Use only standard abbreviations. Please do not use unstandard or unacceptable abbreviations. Please do not use other prone abbreviations. Write it clearly so that the patient will understand. Please note that medicine you have prescribed, the patients are not doctors or nurses always. They are lay persons who may not understand what is TID, BID, HS, and SOS. So kindly be clear whether it's given 3 times daily, 2 times daily, or you can give 111 or 100 like that, so that they will understand it better, the frequency. Whenever exact frequency has to be maintained, especially for antibiotics, there is a subtle difference between writing Q8H, Q8 hourly, or injection ampicillin 8 hourly versus ampicillin TID. When you write TID, it's given 3 times daily without the proper frequency need to be maintained. Whereas whenever it's 8 hourly, you have to give it once in 8 hours. Medication orders in the uniform location so that people will understand better. Now, e-prescriptions have sorted out many of these problems, but not easy to get e-prescriptions everywhere. Special considerations: use either an oral syringe or a medication droppers, or a medicine spoon or a medicine cup when you are using the liquid preparation. If the medicine can be given on an empty stomach, give right before a feeding. If the child refuses to take the medicine because of bad taste, Mix with fruit juice, milk, or another liquid. Shake the bottle well before use. As I've already told you, prepare the medicine, open the mouth by gently squeezing his or her cheeks. Slowly squirt the medicine into the side of the infant mouth. Do not squeeze it to the back of the throat because this can cause choking or aspiration, gag. When you are using the eye drops or ointments, the same with the ear drops, wash your hands before and after use. Hold container between hands to bring eye drops or ointment to room temperature before using it. Clean child's eye secretions and old medicines if necessary. Gently wipe the eyes with a damp gauze or cotton pad, and then child's head has to be tilted back and to the side of the affected side so that you can instill. Similarly, for the eardrops, wash your hands, warm the medicine by holding a bottle between your fingers, and if there is suspension, shake the bottle well. For children less than 3 years of age, pull the outer ear outwards, downwards, but more than 3 years, you can see, outwards and upwards. Instill prescribed number of drops in affected area here without touching drop or ear or hold. Topical ointments for use on skin only, keep out of the mouth, and be careful when you are using such ointments in children because they may put it into the mouth. Wash your hands and clean affected area and dry before use, and apply a thin layer of medicine to the affected skin and rub it gently. Some medicines can be poured or squeezed onto a gauze pad, cotton swab, or cotton balls to apply. Do not put coverings or blood sheets unless indicated. For subcutaneous injections, 25 gauge needle is a preferred one, 1.5 ml maximum volume that can be given subcutaneously into the thigh of infants or deltoid area or older children because beneath the skin and fat before the muscle. Intramuscular injections, 1-inch needle is a preferred one, 23 gauge, 3 ml maximum volume, 5 ml in adults, 0.5 ml maximum volume for deltoid area. Infants and children, better to give it on the anterolateral aspect of the thigh. Avoid medial thigh due to major blood vessels and nerves, so prefer to be on the anterolateral aspect of the thigh. Ventrogluteal region is a preferred site for 2 to 3 years. Older children, the deltoid muscle or in the posterolateral aspect of the gluteal area, not in the buttocks, can be used for intramuscular injections. Be careful. Patients on multiple medications. Be careful what drug has to be given, what route, what dose, and what duration. Patients with another condition, example, renal impairment or pregnancy, you have to be very, very careful in adjusting the dose accordingly. Patients who cannot communicate well, children, small children less than 1 year, who cannot talk, who cannot communicate what is happening to them. Patients who have more than one doctor to treat, in the sense you have sent a patient seen and you have treated the patient has to go to cardiology, get a prescription, go to neurology or nephrology and get prescriptions. There should not be any therapeutic duplicates in such situations. Be careful in such situations to avoid the combination. Patients who do not take an active role in their own medication use. So how to make medication use safer in children? Tailor prescribing for each patient. Each patient has to get his own medications for his treatment. Learn and practice through medication history taking, whatever the patient he was having, what are the medications he is having, and then what is to be prescribed. Know the high-risk medications and take precautions accordingly. Know the medications you prescribe well. Kindly have enough knowledge about the medication what you're prescribing. Use memory aids if required. Communicate clearly to the patient that these are the medications that has to be given for such and such a long time. Develop checking habits, always verify, ask them to get the medicines back from pharmacy and check it. And encourage patients to be actively involved in medication. Use generic names as far as possible. There are instances where methotrexate was given instead of medroxyprogesterone, which is one is progestational, pro-pregnancy, another is anti-pregnancy. Report and learn from others' errors. Always better to learn from others' mistakes. Include name, dose, route, frequency, duration of every drug in the prescriptions. Inquire about recently seized drugs or stopped drugs. What is the reason why they have stopped, and see whether it is to be continued or whether it has to be stopped. Ask about over-the-counter medications, dietary supplements, and alternative medicines which may interfere with your drug management. Make sure what patient actually takes matches the list of prescriptions. Be particularly careful across transitions of care, especially when the patient is getting admitted or discharged. Practice medication reconciliation at admission to a or to admission to either AR or OT or discharge from the hospital. Look up for any medications you are unfamiliar with. Always read, and read. And always include allergy history and encourage patients to keep a written record of their medications and allergies. Consider drug interactions, medications that can be seized, and medicines that may be causing side effects. And when prescribing a new medication, provide patient with the following information clearly: name, purpose, and action of the medication, dose, route, and administration, special instructions, directions, precautions, common side effects, interactions, and how the medication will be monitored. Very, very clearly, you tell this patient so that they'll be understand. Some negligence in the course of human endeavors is predictable. The mere fact that a certain percentage of errors will predictably occur provides no basis to infer that an error on a particular occasion was free of negligence. To err is human, to forgive divine. There may be those to be responsible for injuries caused by undisputed negligence is the law. So with that, before I conclude, please see to it that these cute kids get right drug, right dose, right nutrition, right route, right preparations, right advice, and right choice for a right child to make him all right. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. I would like to uh, open the session for question and answer. Thank you. Any questions?
Hello. Yes,
Yeah.
am I audible? Yes, sir, thank you. It was really an informative session. I must just conclude with one thing that pediatrics are one of the very a special population who cannot easily tell their problems. So a
Absolutely.
pediatrician who has to really understand by a physical examination and their huge experience actually helps them out to treat the such a special population. And one more problem is about the formulations what we are using, as rightly said by sir. A right choice of formulation is very important, then right dose and right durations, because we cannot treat them as half adults. That is very true, what sir has pointed out. And looking into pediatrics, even a pharmacist also has a very important role in a hospital or in a community, because even a dispensing error can lead to a lot of problem. And not reading a proper prescription or misleading going through because of some illegible handwriting, and if you are unable to understand the prescription, it is very important that the parents as well as the pharmacist, they should uh, communicate with the physician and or pediatrician, and they should make themselves sure that whatever they are purchasing the medication, it is correct. Otherwise that will lead to a wrong drug with a wrong formulation with wrong dose, and everything will go in the child, and nobody can afford to do that. So it's a very specialized unit and a practice, and a very careful monitoring is required. Thank you, sir. You have touched upon each and every point, which even our participants, they are not only teachers, even they are parents as well, and they are pharmacists as well. So they have more role to play, even guiding the other family members who are residing in their complex. It's not that a pharmacist only I am a teacher. Even I can even help to have a better medication in the pediatrics, and I can help my neighbor in understanding the prescription, understand the medication. So in that way also we can contribute to society as a teacher. Thank you, sir. If anyone has any questions, please you can unmute or you can put up on the chat box, please.
I think there are no questions in the chat box.
Uh, Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming and delivering. We are really happy to have such a great knowledge regarding the prescribing behaviors and what a prescriber thinks, because nobody understands the prescriber. Everybody has their own perception, because what a prescriber thinks when he prescribes medicines, that everyone has to think of. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bijoy. Thank you, Manjusha, madam. for the
Thank you, sir. I would request all the delegates to kindly switch on their cameras for a photo session.
Thank you so much.
I request all the delegates to join by 12:10 for the next session.
Thank you, Sunil sir, for accepting our invitation and for such a wonderful session. I'll be in touch with you.
Oh, yes. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam.